everyone, welcome back to Katarina's Garage. My name is Katarina Lloyd, and well, today I am going to be showing you some tips and tricks or whatever of actually dailying a classic car in winter. So there's a few things to consider with that, because a lot of classic cars do not have like ABS or traction control or any sort of stability control at all. In fact, most old cars don't even have airbags, right? Airbags became standard, or at least on the driver's side, in 96, and on the passenger side, in 98, if I remember correctly. Or at least here in Canada. So there's only a couple of exceptions to that rule, such as the Dodge Viper and stuff like that. But anyway, so this is the car that I'm going to be using as sort of a basis of kind of showing you guys of what to do. I'll be doing a little bit of driving and showing you guys just a couple of little things to kind of, hopefully, if you're thinking about dailying a classic car in the wintertime, which it's not the worst thing you can do, but it's something that you have to be cautious of because of certain things. Like, I daily fox bodies in the winter all the time. You know what, like, even I had to break out the convertible the other day on all-season tires, which wasn't the greatest idea, but I locked the keys in the car. Just, it happens, right? No big deal. But anyway, so let me kind of show you guys some things, and like to start off is actually getting proper winter tires, and preferably studded winter tires, because the thing is, like, your all-season tires are designed for warmer climates, and they don't have the tread pattern to properly get the grip in the snow and ice. Also, they're usually only effective to about like -5 or -10 Celsius, not Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. And then they will especially start to lose all of their traction, and you'll just be sliding everywhere. They're also a harder compound as well. And what I mean by that is, like, when you take a winter tire and take an all-season tire, if you press down on it, you'll actually notice that it's actually much firmer in the summertime, because like a firmer tire is better for like traction and stuff like that when it's warmer weather. But when it's colder, you actually want a softer compound. Although race tracks and stuff like that, you'll have a softer compound as well. That's why actually some guys that don't have the money for nice sort of slicky tires, they'll actually put winter tires on their car to go to the track, because they're a softer compound and they're cheaper than a slick. So anyways, that's just a little trick for you if you're thinking about racing your car too. But anyways, so let's go over this thing, because this is a 1982 Mercury Capri. It's not an RS, even though it's got an RS scoop, and it's got a Mustang GT hatch on it. So but yeah, this car, honestly, it's good as well. And something to consider as well, because there are different wipers as well, is to actually get winter style wipers. I like to use a brand called Trico. Now, I'm not sure what brand these are. These don't look like Trico, but they actually work pretty well. So, you know, and again, this is not my car. This is a friend of mine's car. So there's that. So anyways, and you can see actually when I show you guys, because these are actually my wheels and tires that I put on this car personally. So you can see, like, look at that tread pattern and everything, right? It will dispel the snow and ice a lot better, but it's not actually studded, and studded actually will dig into the ice and give you traction better. So there is that to consider. And also, something else too, now you can get these absolutely anywhere. If you take a look here, is you'll need yourself a snow brush. Now, this isn't a great one. This one's okay, it's older and whatever else, but it works. You can go to any sort of, a lot of different stores will actually have these, including some gas stations will even have them in the wintertime too. Places like Canadian Tire, Princess Auto, that sort of thing, or if you're in the States, any of your basic, you know, basic stores that have basically everything, like even Walmart will carry those. But anyways, now let's move on to actually starting the car, because this is a carbureted vehicle, and so it requires a little bit of finessery that way. So I just want to make sure that the radio does not come on. There we go. So when you're starting your car in the winter time especially, it might fight you, even though, like, it's only 2 degrees out here. It's actually quite warm. But the car's not plugged in. These carbureted cars usually like 20, 30 degree weather, more so than your, you know, as cold as it is right now. But anyways, so let's just see. So all I do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll do one more and let off it slowly, because that will, this is an electronic choke, but that'll kind of engage the choke a little bit. That last one isn't always a necessity, depending on your carburetor setup, whatever else. You'd probably know this, but still. Anyways. There we go. Actually, oh, there we go. See? Now, if it does what that just did, because it started really nice and then stalled out. Basically, you just go 1, 2, and then hold the revs a little bit, not high. Oh, no, it's not going to let me. Hang on. See, and sometimes, again, it's just cars in the winter, especially when they're not dialed in properly. This one's not. I could tune the carburetor a little bit, but it's not my car. So. And sometimes as well, you might flood the carburetor doing that. So basically, all you want to do is, when you're cranking, just hammer on the throttle if you feel like you flooded it, and then it should start. Right? I'm just holding the RPMs, just ever so slightly, hitting the throttle here, right? And then if I let go, there we go. So it's cold still. It sounds really good when it's cold, but it's not proper yet, right? You need to give it time to warm up. Even some older, actually, that, there we go. Because even older injection units will need to warm up as well. Like, take any of the Fords or the CFI units in the 80s. Those pretty much act like a carburetor, and you actually need to let the engine warm up, otherwise it's not going to really go anywhere. Because if I try to put it into gear right now, it's just going to stall out. In fact, it's kind of barely running, but I can show you guys, though, how this thing sounds out back. As I'm waiting for it to warm up. Right? And this is just a 255 V8 actually with the exhaust system. That's all it is. It's got glass packs on it, so that's why it sounds so good. Glass packs, but hollowed out cats. So yeah. Anyways, I'll get back when the car is actually idling. There we go. So now that the car is finally warmed up, whatever, I am actually driving along here, and basically there's quite a few things to consider when you're daily in a classic. So for example, I am just lightly on the throttle right now on this road, but if I give it a little more, it starts to slide, right? If I pin it, because it's all icy and stuff like that. And then you have to like gradually press the brakes, because otherwise, if I slam on the brakes here, I start to slide, right? And so that's something to consider, because again, I do not have anti-lock brakes. You know, and you always want to make sure, like, too, of when you are, because if you don't have anti-lock brakes and you're in a panic situation when you have to stop, honestly, the best thing you can do is actually pump the brake, because that is kind of a surefire way to actually get it to stop properly. So, now I am stuck in a spot now, and I might slide here, but that's okay. I'm making sure that I have enough room. And actually, I didn't slide too bad. Like, the roads right now are not too bad, but I'll see if I can find a worse road to kind of demonstrate of what will happen if you just think you can just go, right? And, because there should be, like, a lot of the roads are pretty clear around here, just a little wet, but, like, even my convertible would be fine in this weather right now. Which, like I mentioned, I had to drive her the other day because with the all-season tires on it, it was just sliding a decent amount. Not too bad, but it's only because it's a convertible. It has all that weight along the back tires. But then also something to consider as well, if you're driving a rear-wheel drive car in the winter, consider getting sandbags and putting them in the back. Preferably displaced on both sides so that when, like, if you have an open rear diff, which most cars are gonna have if it's a rear-wheel drive, and just displace the weight to both sort of corners that way on the back, because that way, because like how an open differential works is that only one tire is going to spin at a time, but when you start to lose traction one tire, it'll go to the other side, so that's why you want that extra weight out back. Also, tire chains are not a bad investment either, especially if you live in an area where it's really bad with like hills and stuff like that. Tire chains are a decent investment, but remember, if you put tire chains on your car, that to not go fast, you have to do gradual acceleration and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're just gonna break the chain and potentially damage your vehicle. So I'm just seeing if there's a road around here that has some more snow and ice, which I want to say it's going to be this road because it's not a priority road. It was yesterday anyway, so let's see. That might not be enough to demonstrate. But, oh, there we go. See, I slid a little bit there. So maybe there is, okay. And basically, you just want to be casual driving. You want to make sure, because like, for example, you know, this corner here, there's a bunch of snow and ice on this corner that I'm coming up to. And, you know, if I just give it a little bit of throttle, the car's going to start sliding. Like, you have to really be gentle in the throttle with these old cars. You know, in the wintertime. And it's stuff like that that'll keep you safe. As well, like, because even here, like, I am sliding right now with these winter tires on the car, and I'm only doing 55, right? But basically, just make sure you don't have any distractions, and you just drive, and you look ahead, and you make sure to plan what you're doing ahead. Because compared to, say, summer or whatever, you might be able to be a little distracted and stuff like that. Winter, you can't do that. You should be as safe as possible when driving like this. And just as an example, because like this road is kind of awful right now, I'm not gonna lie. It's actually a little worse than it was yesterday. And that's just because it got warmer, some of that ice melted, or some of the snow melted, but then it turned into ice. So, and ice is your worst enemy, because snow wasn't too bad. Snow will be displaced very easily by your tires, and that sort of thing. So, yeah, but basically, that's kind of the idea. As well, something else too is, this is a very basic one, because right now, I think this might have just regular bug spray in it for the windshield washer fluid. But if you are, if you're driving it in the wintertime, you'll want actually winter-specific fluid because it won't freeze. The summer stuff will, because it's not designed to be that cold. It's designed to get bug guts off your windshield, more so. So, yeah, but like, and, you know, and like, for example, because you might be able to, I don't know if you can see this on camera properly, but, like, see, and I'm starting to slide here because I'm giving it a lot more throttle, but, you know, and I'm doing that just as an example to show you guys of what happens when you just, that wasn't even pinned, that was only like, maybe, not even 3/4 throttle. And so, again, just be safe and make sure that you do the right thing when you are, sorry about that, I screwed up in the footage, but basically where I was trying to end that off with is just like, just make sure that you're safe, and just be safe, right? And like, as well, make sure that if you're buying an old car that it has rear defrost, especially, because if you don't have rear defrost, it's such a pain to try and clean that back window. You know, and make sure that the heat works in your car too, because if you don't have sufficient heat, you will have an issue when it comes to, honestly, just staying warm and staying safe. Because, like, when you're warm inside your car, it's not so bad. But then as well, something else to consider too is window seals. These window seals are good in this car. The window seals in my 81 Mustang are not, nor are they good on my convertible. And so the thing is, when you are going about in the wintertime and your seals are bad, it can actually cause the inside to fog up quite badly. And it can blind you, no matter how good your defrost is. So do consider, if you have bad window seals, just take it for a drive and see. And some of this stuff will even apply to non-classic vehicles as well, some more modern vehicles. But basically, just keep an eye out on, well, that sort of stuff. I'm sorry, my brain is deciding not to work properly. And now, interestingly enough, though, when it comes to driving in the winter, and if you happen to be stuck on a main sort of road, if you go down a side road, oddly enough, like, if you find a road that's actually gravel in the wintertime, it'll actually be a little better because the gravel will dissipate the snow and ice better than what concrete does, or what, you know, any sort of road proper that's paved does. So yeah, that's just things to consider that way as well. And you can probably hear a little bit too when the slush starts to come up. It's actually attempting to pull the car to the right a little bit. Think about like heavy and deep snow or whatever that's like slushy as similar to driving through like a bunch of water. It feels very similar to that, and you know, and it can throw the car about as well. So just keep your wits about you. And yeah, because the majority of people that are probably going to watch this probably don't daily their classic, and that's fine, you know. But I do, because I don't have a vehicle ready right now for me to drive in the wintertime that isn't one of my Mustangs, you know. And that's the whole thing. And don't worry about if you don't have traction, that's okay when it comes to like speed limits and stuff like that. Drive speeds that you're most comfortable with your car. And as well, something else that I always encourage people to do: find a desolate corner somewhere that there's nobody around, you're not going to disturb anybody, and you're not going to crash into anything, and actually play with your car a bit, especially in the wintertime. Slide it out a bit to see where's the threshold, because it's not only fun, but it's actually very informative too. Because this is what I did with both of my cars. There's a corner by my house that there's hardly ever traffic there, and I will actually go around that corner and slide it about, and to see, you know, where my car is going to be and like where the threshold is. Because sometimes I'll purposely spin out to see where that threshold is, and then sometimes I'll try and hold it too. It just depends. Like those cars I know very, very well to drive in the wintertime. That's not a big deal. This car's a little different because it's a hatchback, but it's still a foxbody. It's basically the same. It's just slightly heavier on the back end than my 81, but actually lighter on the back end than the 86. It's kind of in between, right? Because this car that I'm driving now is probably around 2,900 pounds, give or take. But you know, I'm like, this is a perfect... I'm coming up to this corner here, right? So there is no traffic around. This happens to actually be dirt here. And basically, all I'm going to do is just slow down and just hit the throttle, right? And it starts to spin very easily. Like, you don't have to pin it, right? But, you know, and that's just sort of the stuff that I do. And just remember, though, is to... Oh, right, I added it first. I'm like, why is the rev so high? But, you know, and that's just stuff to consider as well. And also, like, if... It's easier with a manual, but with an automatic too, if you are having troubles with slowing down, there are a few things you can do. One is, like, even with an automatic, you can manually downshift it to help you slow down. It's called engine braking, which a lot of people with, like, manual transmissions, and even in, like, big trucks and stuff like that, like semi-trucks with the manuals, they will do that to slow down easier. Now they have actual engine brakes as well, but basically, it's also a way to preserve your brakes too, but, you know, that's not as important when it comes to this. So yeah, like, you can use the transmission, but just be aware of how fast you're going and stuff like that. Like, don't, for example, if you're going like 100 kilometers an hour, don't go from third to first. Go from like third to second, or if you have a 4-speed or a 5-speed, you know, just downshift a gear, right? And then as you let off the throttle, and don't like completely let off the throttle, but let off the throttle slowly, right? Keep downshifting it to come to a stop. Like, you can still use the brakes, yes, in that instance, but that is something that I have used as well, just so that I know that the car is going to stop. Because the perpetual motion of, like, when you're in a different gear, you can even throw it in neutral as well, because that way the car isn't pulling anymore. Like, it's not pulling you forward. The engine is just running. So, like, being in neutral that's another thing you can do as well. And, like, because I have spun out in an intersection a couple of times in the wintertime in my foxbodies. It just happens. Sometimes there's just no traction whatsoever, and you just go for a ride, right? And, you know, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do about it. Now, I will admit, because, like, with me, I prefer not having ABS and traction control, because it gives me more control over the car, and not just in a race setting, like even in winter too. You actually do get a little bit more control that way, instead of relying on computers to do it for you. Now, if you're not an experienced driver when it comes to that, I would not advise you drive a classic in the wintertime that does not have traction control or ABS, or any sort of stability control at all. But anyways, I think I've kind of hammered the point home with this whole video, because it is fun, and, like, you know, yeah, it's just one of these things. And because this is my daily life, right? I daily fox bodies. And now, personally, like, if you're gonna go after a vehicle to drive in the wintertime that is a classic car, I would not advise on getting something super heavy. I'd advise on getting something that is lighter, because lighter cars tend to have a little bit more traction, and especially with the correct tires and stuff like that, you're actually pretty decent overall. Because notice that the vehicles that typically get stuck in the wintertime are usually the bigger SUVs and the bigger trucks and stuff like that. Or honestly, just get a 4x4 and make sure you have weights in the back as well, like I mentioned. That's the only thing. Like, front wheel drive is actually great too. Like, there's no issues really with front wheel drive in the winter either. I just prefer the rear wheel drive, because you can have a little more fun, but also I can control, well, at least for me anyways, I feel like I can control skids a little easier and stuff like that with the rear wheel drive, because I know how to power out of it, whatever else. And that's the one thing that, because again, I'm used to this. My first car was my '81 Mustang. I daily drove it, you know, year round. So I know this stuff, right? And just like my '86, I've played around with it to know its thresholds and stuff like that. That was a little different because of the V8, just like this car, it's a V8 as well. This is an even slower V8 than mine, because it's only a 255. But yeah, just basically, the thing I can hammer home here is have patience when it comes to driving in winter conditions. Because, you know, especially in a classic. Because otherwise, you know, if you're just in a hurry and urgent, like, that can be a recipe for a disaster, to be honest. Because even like here, like, I won't be able to read it, and sorry, it's probably a little bit of a shaky camera here. There we go, I studied it myself. But like, for example, that says 80 kilometers an hour is the speed limit. However, I'm only doing 60 because the car is, actually I might want to slow down even a little bit more than that, because the car is sliding about, right? And, you know, it's just one of those things. Because the speed limits are for optimal conditions, and that's what people don't understand, is there are times throughout the year that they will not have optimal conditions, and you will just have to go a little slower, right? And like I said, plan ahead of what you're going to do, like when you're going to stop and stuff like that. It's similar to actually racing, oddly enough, is look where you want to go, and because oddly enough, like if you're in a slide, for example, because actually there was a show called Canada's Worst Driver, which hammered this home so bad, of look where you want to go. Because, for example, if you are going around a blind corner and it's icy, if you look where you want to go, chances are your body will actually have the pre-notion as well to hit the brakes, like, because you'd slide a little bit, let off, and then you can go around the corner, right? And that's no different than any of their other, like, high-speed tests and stuff like that. They always hammered, look where you want to go, because that's something you should do in the summertime too, but especially in the winter. And that's with any car. So yeah, anyways, I think I'm about done here. Although, actually, there is one little thing I do want to show, because I think there's enough up here at this intersection to kind of show something that you will have to do when it comes to kind of coming up to an icy sort of intersection that way. Because, again, like if I had studded tires, I probably wouldn't need to do this, but I don't have studded tires. Studded tires are a little more expensive. And now, if you can't afford tires, actually a great place to go is your local junkyard. Because a lot of junkyards, actually, they'll have sales on tires and stuff like that, and they're very cheap. Because if you can't afford, you know, $600 to $1,000 for a set of tires, I can understand that. I'm in that position too. So, okay, now I'm making sure to stop a little earlier. There we go. So I'm at actually, yeah. So there's no traffic coming, but when I go here, it's starting to slide. And basically, you just want to make sure, give yourself extra room when you're coming around a corner or when you're going into an intersection like that, to make sure that you will actually, well, stop, right? So, oh, that's 55. But anyways, so I will end the video here. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful to some of you. I understand a lot of you are not going to be dailying your classic, but some of us have no choice, so there's that. And actually, one other thing I'll leave you with is, in the wintertime, I tend to keep my cars very clean so that they don't rust. Because rust, like, having a dirty car is the enemy for rust, and that's why my 81 Mustang, the rust really hasn't spread hardly at all because of what I did when it comes to cleaning the car externally all the time, or as much as I can anyways. So anyways, I'll leave you all with that. Thank you all so much for watching, and hope you guys did enjoy. Please like the video, comment anything you want to see down below as well. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as well, if you want to contact me, you can at Katarina's.garage on Instagram, Katarina's Garage on Facebook. As well, follow me on TikTok at Katarina's.garage as well. Anyways, hope you're staying safe during COVID-19. Good luck with what you're working on, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!